Hi, welcome to this episode of Nerd Bar Physics. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about vector addition and subtraction. So, if you have two vectors that are acting in the same line of action, and by that I mean they're in the same direction, so both of them are facing the same direction, you can add them just the way you add normal quantities. For example, if you have one vector A, and another vector B. The way you would add them is you'd take the tail of vector B, which is the second vector that has been mentioned, and you put it at the head of vector A. So it's head to tail. So the head of the first one goes to the tail of the second one, and the resulting vector is going to be a vector that goes in the same direction, which has the length of A plus B. So if vector A had, let's say, 5 meters and vector B was 8 meters, the resulting vector is going to be 13 meters because 5 plus 8 is equals to 13. And let's say you have two other vectors. In this case, they're acting in the y direction. So this is, we can call it the vertical direction as well, but they're both acting in the same direction. You can also add them the same way we did part 1. So you put your head of vector B, your tail of vector B on your head of vector A, and your resulting vector is going to be a vector that has the magnitude of A plus B, which is 3 plus 5, which in this case is 8 meters. And if you had, 8 meters. So let's move to subtraction, vector subtraction. When you're subtracting two vectors, you basically add the two vectors the way you normally would if it were addition, except you change the direction of the second vector. So if you had, say, vector A minus vector B, you draw vector A the way it is, in the same direction in which it originally supposed to be, and you take vector B and turn it in the opposite direction. Because it has a minus sign in front of it, you can take it that it's going to change direction. So you take vector B, turn it around, and place head to tail, the head of the first vector on the tail of the second one, and you're going to have a resulting vector of A minus B, because your resultant is going to be the tail of the first one, from the tail of the first one to the head of the second one. So what you're working with here is 8 minus 3, and your resulting vector is going to be 5 meters. Similarly, if you have a vector that is in the vertical, we were dealing with the horizontal just now, so if you have something in the vertical, the same thing will happen. If you have a minus sign before any one of the vectors, you just simply change the direction of that vector. So in this case, vector A is 10 meters and vector B is 2 meters. But because there's a minus sign before vector B, you change its direction and put its tail on the head of vector A, and that's going to give you a magnitude of A minus B. If you start from the tail of vector A and end at the head of vector B, you're going to have 10 minus 2 meters, which is going to give you 8 meters, and that's going to be the magnitude of your resulting vector. Just an emphasis, most of the vector answers that you're going to be finding are going to be called the resulting vectors, and they can be represented by the letter R. Okay, now that we have that figured out, we can move to vectors that aren't acting in the same direction. You follow the same rules that we've been following all along, head to tail. So if you have vector A acting in a certain direction, you take vector B exactly the way it is and place its tail on the head of vector A without changing its direction. So make sure that as you translate vector B to vector A, you don't change the direction in which it's facing. And your resulting vector is going to be a vector r which starts from the tail of vector A and ends at the head of vector B. So it's the same concept, head to tail, for any addition or subtraction. If it's addition, you add them just the way they are. If it's subtraction, you change the direction of the second vector. And that brings us to our final example. If you have the same vectors A and B, but this time we're subtracting them, we're changing the direction of vector B and placing its tail at the head of vector A. And that's going to give us a resulting vector that starts from the tail of vector A to the head of a vector negative B. Once you change the direction of a vector, its name, so to speak, changes. For example, if you have a vector A and they ask you to draw negative A, it's going to be the same length but the opposite direction. Same applies for, say, this vector B, which is acting in the vertical. Negative B would have the same magnitude, so it would have the same length, but it would be in the opposite direction. No matter where a vector is facing, the negative of that vector is just simply going to be a vector with the same magnitude but opposite direction. So that's all for today's episode. If you understood what I have explained in this video, please comment down below, and if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Thank you.